Hi, today we're going to talk about one of the rules of composition. The rule is the rule of thirds. This rule is used to help create good compositions. It's also a great rule that you can use to help you decide what is important to stay in the image and what maybe you could just leave out. So how does the rule of thirds work? I'm going to see if I can make it a little simple for you. All you're doing is breaking your image into 3 segments, or thirds, and then you turn them into 9 squares. Where all these lines intersect is where your most important element is placed. The person, object, what you want the viewer to go to first is going to go where the lines intersect. The best way to envision it, as you can see here, is like a tic-tac-toe frame. You have the tic-tac-toe board in front of your image, and you look at where you're shooting and you think, what is the most important object in the scene? And you want to place that object where the lines intersect. Why do you want to do that? Studies show that the eyes find images broken up into thirds pleasing to the eye and automatically go to where those lines intersect. So by placing the objects in those areas, you have created a more pleasing composition by following along with how they're naturally viewing. You don't want to fight how they're looking. Well, until you do, but that's a totally different lesson on learning the rules so you can intentionally break them later. We've all heard that before. Anyway, you put those important objects right where those lines intersect. Here are some examples to look at so you can see how it is done. When you're looking at what you want to take a picture of, you have already determined the most important element that you're trying to convey to the viewer. So once you put that element where those lines intersect, then you can start thinking where the other items can go, and this helps you eliminate objects that aren't even important to your image. The rule of thirds works no matter what you're taking a picture of. A portrait, then you want to make sure the eyes of the person that you're photographing go right across the top of the 3 lines. In television and film, if you're watching a documentary or a newscast where you need to identify someone, you will notice they use the lower thirds. That's where the person identifier is placed, right at the lower thirds. See, the rule of thirds is constantly being used when you're shooting, whether in video or photography. DSL cameras and smartphones have a grid that you can turn on to help you start practicing on using the rule of thirds. If you need some help finding and using your menus in your camera, check out my 30-day camera challenge, Making Your Camera Simple. You can find all the details in the comments below. Once you start using the rule of thirds on a regular basis, you're not even going to need that grid anymore. Your mind is going to automatically start placing your objects at the place of where the lines intersect, those important points. Here are a couple activities you can use to help you practice with the rule of thirds. Number 1, find something in your home to photograph. It can be whatever you want as long as you have the ability to get near it and far away. Each time you photograph it, and you're going to photograph it far away, a little closer, and then really close to it. Each time you photograph it in these different ways, you're going to think about the rule of thirds. You already know what your important object is. You picked it. So you know that's going to be the most important element. Think about placing it where the lines intersect, and then look around and see, is there another object important that should be placed in the scene? Placed at another intersecting line? Or do you want to remove that object? Again, the rule of thirds is a great way to help you decide what goes in your image and what you might want to leave out. Once you've practiced that, let's move to the second activity, portraits. If you're doing a portrait of someone, pick a family member or a friend, and the one thing to think about on portraits is to include something that's important to that person. It's not just a picture of that person, it's showing a bit of their personality. I want you to think of including something that represents that person in your shot. And then you're going to have to include that object plus the person and decide how to set it up, thinking about the rule of thirds. Okay, so that's the rule of thirds. I would love to see what you come up with. Tag me on my Instagram, RebeccaStone73, or DM me. Thanks for watching my quick lesson on the rule of thirds to help enhance your composition skills.